Inswing or outswing? Which one should you bowl? That is one of the questions we'll answer today on the first episode of my new podcast, Left Field Cricket. And with me today, I have one of the smartest people I know. I like to call him Professor, but you all will know him as Professor Vaibhav Pandey in the Pure Math department. So today we're going to discuss whether you should bowl inswing or outswing and why. And then after that, because I like to bowl outswing, I'm a primarily outswing bowler and Professor is primarily an inswing bowler. We'll teach you guys some of the tricks of the trade. So let's get started. I'd like to ask you the question. What do you think? Is inswing better or outswing?
Well, every person is good at one of these two things. But I feel that against a batsman who is cross-batted, in-swing is much more effective.
Yeah.
And against a batsman who's better on their front foot, outswing is much better.
So there's a few things there. First off, the cross-bat part. I do agree actually. With batsmen who are cross-batted, usually what happens is they usually mess up when the ball bounces more or less. So one of my points actually, I have two hypotheses right here. One is that in-swing is better for wickets and that outswing is better for stopping runs. Now, why is in-swing better for wickets? I like to believe that when you bowl an in-swinger, let's say it bounces on good length. If you bowl two balls, one that's an in-swinger, one that's an outswinger. If it bounces on good length, the in-swinger will probably end up on the stumps, whereas the outswinger will probably go out. So when you mention cross-batted, right, one of the things with players who do cross-bat, sometimes they mess up on the bounce. So if you bowl in-swing, what happens then is, if they misjudge the bounce and they miss the ball, if the ball is ending up on the stumps, you are gone. Whereas if you bowl outswing, usually what happens then is they'll miss the ball and you won't lose the wicket. So that was one point. And then your second point was, against batsmen who are good on the front foot, you like to bowl outswing?
Right.
Right. Why is that?
So I feel that people who are good on the front foot, they usually, when they spot in-swing, they can take a couple of steps forward and they can move forward to cover up the in-swing.
Yeah.
In-swing is more lethal when the ball has more time in the air.
Yes.
Right. Usually, you would see in-swing bowlers put the ball, their lengths are more full as opposed to outswing bowlers. So guys who are better on the front foot, they have a higher probability of covering your in-swing ball and playing for it. Sometimes even batting a couple of steps outside. But then for them, if you bowl outswing, as in if the length is shorter, then that advantage sort of goes away. So that's why I think.
So that's a very good point. One of the things that batsmen do to counter both kinds of swing is they do stand out of the crease. But this is very good against in-swing usually because for the ball to end up on the stumps, it actually has to bounce outside of stump, right? So if you counter it before it swings, then the ball is not actually going to be on the stumps and the umpire cannot even give it LBW if you miss it. Whereas for outswing, like you said, actually as an outswing bowler myself, most of my deliveries when I'm bowling outswing, before the ball swings, to bowl outswing, you actually have to aim for about leg stump. And then the ball starts swinging somewhere around here and then goes out. So that is actually a very good point. Especially against batsmen who are standing out of the crease, outswing might work very well.
Right. So far, two things which I think at our level of cricket, the listener should be very clear about is, if you have even a hint of in-swing going for you, as soon as you see a cross-batted batsman, and at our level there are enough club level batsmen who open or who bat one down but who are predominantly cross-batted. As soon as you see a cross-batted batsman, you should not think for a second time and just bowl full, bowl to the stumps, and more often than not you will get them out, and in a very embarrassing fashion, I must say.
Yes, so that brings me to my second hypothesis actually, which I do have it in quotations here, but to good batsmen, you should bowl outswing, whereas to bad batsmen, and we'll explain what we think of both, you should swing it in. And here is why. Actually, I have a story for this. So when I used to play in Florida, I played in a variety of leagues. I played with some very good players. I bowled to Shayan Jahangir. He is actually opened.
So what sort of level of cricket did you used to play in Florida?
Yeah, so actually a wide variety. Because when I first started, I was actually playing in a tennis ball league, which I would say is a little more casual. And obviously in tennis ball, there's no swing. But then I also played in a proper tournament called the President's Cup, where they actually had MLC players, at that time minor league players, come in and for especially semi-finals or sometimes they pay players just to come for a couple of matches, which
Right.
is why
Right.
it's very important to have that rule that your players have to play.
Right.
But that point aside, I actually played in a wide variety of levels. And one of the things I've noticed is, like you said, in lower levels of cricket, usually one down, two down, even openers sometimes, the batsmen are cross-batted. And one of the things I've noticed is if the batsman he's not as skilled, maybe he's new to the crease, then if I bowl outswing, he misses the ball. But it doesn't matter. He can miss 6 balls in a row, the ball ends up outside off stump, and he's just 6 dot balls. And then the next bowler comes on and he smacks him for a few boundaries. That's one thing I noticed.
Right.
Whereas I've noticed, I thought of this podcast idea when I saw you bowl. I'd also like to cover before that what I mean by good and bad batsmen. This is a mix of both skill and how set they are. So even a very good batsman, the first few balls that he faces, if you bowl good balls in the right area, I believe he is in a lot of trouble if you can get it in the right spot. And for a bad batsman, obviously it's possible the guy is not a batsman, a tail ender or something. But some batsmen, even if they aren't as skilled, once they get set, it doesn't really matter. So that's what I mean by that. But I've noticed a lot is that I'm used to struggle to get bad batsmen out. Whereas I watch other in-swing bowlers, and Professor is very good. But in Florida, there are some who I would say they're kind of more casual players. Usually they just run in, they bowl very slow, and I was like, there's no way they get wickets. But they would get a lot more wickets than I would, even if they ended up getting hit. So this is where my second hypothesis came.
These were in-swing bowlers.
Yes, they were primarily in-swing.
So I think one thing which explains this really well is that there is a fundamental asymmetry between in-swing and outswing. The asymmetry being, if let's assume that the bowler is a good in-swing bowler as well as a good outswing bowler. The asymmetry is, if you are a good in-swing bowler, you do not need to rely on your fielders to get wickets.
True.
And that's something I, as an in-swing bowler, appreciate a lot.
Yes.
And it makes me feel very self-sufficient, if I might say so. A good in-swing ball usually results in either a LBW or a bowled, or hits the bat or hits the stumps, hits the bat and hits the stumps or something. So you do not rely on fielders. That's one. As an outswing bowler, predominantly you are relying on either the keeper catching it, which is probably your safest bet,
Yes.
or point, second slip, gully, something like this, or maybe even a third man catching it. That the probability of that is much lower. These people have to be positioned at the right spot, and
They
also
have to
again
be able to take
and
the
also
catch.
again at our level, catching is sort of on the day and so on. So this is I do feel that for this reason, if you have an equally good in-swing or outswing bowler, especially at our level, the in-swing bowler will be more successful.
Yes, I agree 100%.
In terms of stats, the outswing bowler might have a pretty good economy.
Yes.
That could happen. So, but it is what it is.
So that is exactly what I'm talking about, because in Florida I was primarily an outswing bowler. My economy is still very good. I will pull up the stats, but my economy is very good. But if you notice, if I'm correct, I've probably taken maximum 1 wicket a game. Whereas right now, recently, I've started bowling primarily in swing, or not primarily. I can do both now. In fact, I have a full video on how to do both. But I've started doing that, and these past 2 matches that I played, we played one today, by the way. I've taken 2 wickets in 1 over twice. So first match I bowled only 1 over, took 2 wickets, both in swing, and the same thing happened today. And luckily I didn't bowl much, so I can't say much for my economy, but I'm starting to take a lot more wickets. Whereas in Florida, I was near impossible to get away for boundaries, but I used to struggle to take wickets.
But I do want to add one more point about this: good batsmen bowl in swing and bad batsmen good batsmen you swing away and bad batsmen you swing in. So to complement the point that you just made, especially so both of us are bowlers who bowl towards the beginning.
Yes.
We open the ball or we bowl first change. One of the reasons maybe in swing is helping you more is when the batsman is completely new to the pitch, he would rather not play the ball.
Yeah, he'd like to leave a few to see how the pitch is doing.
Especially if it's, let's say, a 30-35 over format, which is sort of semi-serious format at our level. He would want to get an over or two to get his eye in, judge the bounce, judge the pace, etc. But if you're swinging the ball out, he has the option of leaving it.
Yes.
Unless you are swinging it from leg stump or something like this. But for the good thing about Inswing is it doesn't give him time to set.
That is true.
Even when he is completely new, his feet are not moving yet, and so on, and he hasn't yet been able to judge the extent of your swing. You've already gotten. So I mean, let's take up a small example of Bhuvneshwar Kumar. I take his example because he is someone who has the ability to do both. His stock ball is the ball which swings out in the new style,
Yes.
and then the surprise ball is the ball which comes
Yes.
in. And you would notice that he gets his wickets with the surprise ball. In fact, if you remember the very celebrated first wicket of Bhuvneshwar Kumar
First ball,
against
yes.
Pakistan, that was that followed the script of what we were discussing just now. That the batsman is not set yet, the ball pitches on fifth stump and comes in, and he's completely bamboozled. So this asymmetry is very much to the help of an inswing bowler, and if you have the luxury to do both, I would highly recommend making your inswing ball the ball in which you can get those wickets.
That's a very good point, actually. So that ball by Bhuvneshwar Kumar, I think it was a good length ball just outside off stump, and the batsman wanted to leave it, like you said. Batsmen want to leave early, which is why I have these in quotation marks. Even good batsmen are technically bad the first few balls they play, because they can't judge the ball perfectly. They don't know how the pitch is, how much the ball is swinging.
No matter how good you are, the first 8 or 10 balls, your feet are not moving. You want to settle in. You want to judge the bounce and so on and so forth. There are a lot of things going on inside your head. No matter how good you are, the first 8 or 10 balls, you are a little shaky, and that's the best time to. In fact, I remember Rohit Sharma's recently saying this, that if the bowler does not get me out in the first 8 or 10 overs, after that it's only me who can get myself.
That is very true.
So this, as opening bowlers, our first couple of overs are really crucial to the entire match. If we can sneak in something that sets up the tone completely.
Yes, very good point. So one tip I have for our bowlers to make sure that your first few overs go well. In fact, I was telling Professor this today. Professor, I've seen in some matches, he has a tendency to bowl a full toss first ball. And today, as a bowler yourself, you need to realize your first ball is very important. If you give a loosener first ball, then the batsman will feel comfortable, even if your next balls are very good. So you can drop your pace a little, but make sure that it stays in the right spot. And today, Professor actually got a lot of chances. He got a couple catches dropped off his bowling. He still ended up with a wicket. And I would like to think that a part of the reason is the batsman never felt settled against Professor.
Right. So one of the things which errors which I make, and maybe some of you who are watching also make, is we sort of over try on our first ball. That's something I'm very much a culprit of doing. On my first ball, I feel like over trying because I am an inswing bowler. I come in with the mindset that on the very first ball I have to get a wicket, and because of that what ends up happening is I either give a very bad full toss or even a no ball or even a front foot no ball sometimes, and then it's just me trying to come back throughout. I mean, of course, as we said, be aggressive in the first 2 overs, but also do not over try. Know your abilities.
Yes.
Just like the batsman has to settle in, so does the bowler. Maybe for the bowler to settle in, it takes slightly lesser time. And for that, one of the points that you made today while we were driving here is very important.
Yeah.
When you're playing a game of any amount of seriousness, especially if you are an opening bowler, whether or not you're a swing bowler also, do bowl 6 balls with all of your strength before the match starts. Treat it as bowling in the match, but only that you're not bowling in the match. But bowl 6 balls and completely open all of your muscles up and be completely ready so that you do not have a shaky start. In fact, as while we are recording this, we had the India versus Pakistan match today, and we saw the number of wides which Shami bowled in the first over. Right?
Yeah.
He was probably not feeling well. He had a niggle or something, but he ended up giving 4 or 5 wides. He did come back and do much better, but this is something which happens. Srishant also used to do this.
Yeah.
Just a word of caution from our side, I guess.
See, the good thing is, as a bowler, for a batsman, even if you practice 10, 20 balls before, you could bat 30 overs before, but you don't know how that pitch is going to be. As a bowler, you just need to make sure you're throwing the ball in the right spot. So your first ball in the match doesn't actually have to be your first ball.
Right. And I am someone who gets amazed by small things in life. So one of the things, I know it's pretty obvious, but one of the things which amazes me about cricket is that, again, there is a fundamental asymmetry between bowling and batting. The bowler always acts, and it's the batsman's job to react. So I feel, and I very strongly feel this, and this is one of the reasons why I became a bowler, is it is completely true that the bowler sets the tone of the match, because he sets the tone of every ball of the match. He is the one who acts, and it's the batsman who is just reacting to it.
Yes.
So as a bowler, you should always get into the match with the mindset that you are the one who will set the tone of the match.
Yes.
Because the batsman is constrained to act according to your wishes, and you should. I understand that this is something very obvious. First you bowl and then you bat, but if you try to see what it means for you, and if you try to take advantage of that, that's something good to keep in your mind. As I said, it is what made me a bowler, that I am the one who will dictate turns. It's a much more aggressive thing to do than batting, if you think about it.
Yes. Okay, so this is a very good topic. Let's get back to it after a few more discussions.
Right.
So, okay, now for our final answer, then I guess we will, or actually for the first part, which is that inswing takes more wickets and outswing stops runs. I would also like to say one more thing. As men of science, because I'm in computer engineering and professors in maths, we like to look at the stats, right? Very simply put, if you bowl inswing, what you will see is the amount of dismissals that are possible are much higher than if you bowl outswing. Like Professor said, if you bowl inswing and the ball ends up on the stumps, here are the amount of modes of dismissal that are possible. Bowled, LBW, you can inside edge onto the stumps, or you can still have an outside edge, so both edges are in play. Whereas if you were to bowl outswing, there's only, I would say realistically, if the ball does not end on the stumps, then there's only two real modes of dismissal, and that is an edge to the keeper or to another fielder. And that is, I would say, just on the pure numbers point, I think it's pretty clear that inswing is much more wicket taking, right?
It is.
Yes.
It is.
And then this brings me to one more point, which is that I would say inswing is, while more wicket taking, it's a little more 50-50, and here is why. Both for the batsman and the bowler. Since it's on the stumps, it's 50-50 for the batsman in the sense that he has to watch out. You know, if he misses, then the bowler hits. But then for the bowler, it's also 50-50 because as a batsman, I also bat a lot. Professor has also started batting a good amount. What you realize is your head needs to be on top of the ball when you're batting. And when that happens, you have the best judgment of the ball. So if the ball is not swinging a crazy amount, then the batsman, especially if he's a pretty decent batsman, he's not going to fall prey to, you know, just a normal in-swinger, right? And there's one thing that I noticed. It's that outswing is better against good batsmen. And my example is when I bowled to Shayan Jahangir. He's currently, he's opened for the US team. He made 100 a few days back. And then he also opens for Mumbai Indians, New York, I believe. So I bowled to him. Now, when I was bowling to him, I had no idea who he was. I have a video on my channel.
So you bowled to him in Florida?
Yes, I bowled to him in Florida in the President's Cup. And I had no idea who the batsman was. So I was just bowling like I normally do. And one of the first things I noticed is for the first 10 balls, I could see that this guy has a very good stance and he knows what he's doing, but I did not know that he was a batsman of such quality for the first 3-4 balls. And when I was bowling outswing, I noticed one thing, is that if the ball is actually away from the batsman, if it's away from the batsman's head, it's still difficult to judge it. Whereas if you bowl in swing, because we had another bowler who was bowling in swing, he bowled very well too, but from what I remember, he was able to capitalize on that a little better because he was a very good batsman. And this was not an easy pitch. The pitch was slightly up and down, which I think helped me a lot as well. But my point is, against the in-swinger, he was able to play with a straight bat. His head was right on top of the ball, so he was able to get some boundaries. And the ones that stayed a little up or down, he was able to negotiate. Whereas when I was bowling outswing to him, I was varying my line and lengths a lot. But because I was bowling outswing, the majority of the time the ball was outside the stumps. In fact, I even had him edging a few times, and it was very close to getting out. One of my, I wished I'd taken that wicket, but he edged a lot of deliveries, and a couple fours that he hit off me in the first 2 overs especially, they were off edges.
Right. That's I think that's also a good learning for bowlers. Just like the batsmen used to need to use the crease, and they do. In the same way, the bowlers also need to use the crease. So if I do agree with this, if you come wide, if you can, if your bowling allows you to come from wide, and you would often see Bumrah doing it in test matches especially, and or Shami doing it a lot against left-handers, that they come from pretty wide, so that the batsman never has a chance to get their head under the ball. So I do agree that this is another thing as bowlers one should keep in their mind, to use the crease to the disadvantage of the batsman.
Yeah. So I
And,
guess
and outswingers have an advantage in doing that, because as an in-swinger you sort of have to be pretty much doing the same script.
Yes.
So you don't have much wiggle room for that, but outswingers do. Yeah.
we can discuss more about how exactly to maximize our swing, use the crease in this section. But I'd like to say, like you also said, so cross-batted batsman, I would consider someone who plays mainly cross-bat, especially if they don't play a lot, they would not be as skilled, right? So I've noticed if you have a batsman like that, it's better to bowl in swing, even if he hits a 6 or 2. Is that 50-50 nature that I was talking about. It's a little bit of a risk both as a batsman and a bowler. And against lesser skilled batsmen, I believe as a bowler you'll come on top more often than not. Even if they hit a 6 when they're lucky, they'll get bowled or something, right? Whereas against good batsmen, you cannot take that gamble as much, because I would expect someone with a straight bat, good technique, to not just get bowled if I keep bowling on the stumps. And especially in T20s, I believe outswing is a better defensive option, because you can keep the ball away from the batsman. You have a little more variation, like you're talking, and that allows you to, especially if you're playing at that level of cricket, I would expect that your fielders can take catches, right? So in that sense, I actually have a very interesting field that I set against good batsmen. I'll actually draw this out over here. So if I'm bowling from this end, usually what you'll see is the standard field in T20s is you have something like this, right? And then I guess for a fast bowler, you would have one here, and then you can have a third man. What I actually do is I don't even keep a fielder here. I keep this guy up, and I keep an extra cover. And the reason is, when I bowl outswing, I also have pretty decent pace. So what ends up happening is, if you bowl outswing and you can bowl hard length, which is a more defensive length, it's very difficult for the batsman to actually hit the ball straight. So if you can imagine the ball is bouncing pretty high, it is difficult to get under it and hit it straight. The only way, the straightest you can hit it is if you give room and you can free your arms and swing it that way. But with this field, what happens is, because the ball is, it's very difficult to hit the ball down the ground on the offside. If they do try and force it, usually that the ball hits them a little high on the bat and they get caught over here. Whereas if I bowl a little fuller and they usually try and slice it to the offside, then you have 3 fielders here. Now, what field do you have, Professor? Usually, from what I remember, you have a slightly more standard field, and then I think you have one more here.
Right.
Yeah.
So my feeling is that the way the bat. So there's actually one more thing we need to discuss. I just remember.
Yes.
As an in-swing bowler, another mistake which you are very likely to make, especially when you are learning, is you might end up bowling a lot of leg side wides, and that's something you should be very cautious about. And the way to be cautious about it is you should know the extent of swing and then bowl accordingly. So as an in-swing bowler, I feel that it's very difficult to drive me. A cover drive is, I mean, if the batsman can cover drive me for
then
a 4,
very good.
he deserves to get a 4, especially if it's in the gap. So all my field is sort of close to the cow corner. So I have a long on, a cow corner, and still one more man inside the 30-yard circle.
Yes.
Something like this. And I try to keep the ball stump to stump. That's usually what I try to do. And there is a long off in case the batsman wants to go straight in the air. So this is my field is much more traditional.
Yeah. So one other thing, last thing I guess before we answer the question, I do notice that you tend to bowl fuller, and I've noticed this with in-swing bowlers. They like to bowl fuller. I would say that's primarily a more attacking line, right? And then your field is also set that way, where you want them to hit you, right, off a full ball. I like to think that back of length, hard length is a more defensive line. It's harder to hit, right? Whereas if you bowl fuller, you want the batsman to try and hit. Am I correct?
Right.
Yeah.
Bowling fuller is sort of a two-edged sword.
The 50-50.
Right, because if think about it, if you're a batsman, as soon as you see a full ball, you will go hard at it. I mean, you're more likely to go hard at it. But that's the invitation that you're giving, that you go for it hard, play it. I will get you out, or you won't be able to do much. I do feel that as an in-swing bowler, you have to give the ball maximum amount of time in the air for the in-swing to sort of make sense. And usually a good in-swing bowler will have, most of his swing would be late swing. And for late swing to sort of work, the ball has to be in the air.
That is true. Yeah.
If the ball is if you're putting it short, sort of good length or something, and if you're not very fast, so I'm not as fast as him, I'm sort of much slower compared to his pace, then it's easy for the batsman to get on top of the ball. The ball is not swinging much, it's not pretty fast. He can slash it on the leg side, cross batted. So I do feel that as a good in-swing bowler should be more aggressive. Top of off stump, but not shorter than that.
And then on the converse, as an outswing bowler, I like to think, since your chances of taking wickets are less off boards and stuff, you don't necessarily need to pitch it up. You should, in fact, ideally as an outswing bowler, I like to keep it slightly shorter of good length, and at most it should hit the top of the stumps. Ideally it should be a little shorter, especially in T20s where the batsman is going hard. In fact, in Florida, the majority of wickets that I do get up until now have been catches and all. I rarely get bowls, only of Yorkers. So there's also that duality. So in conclusion, I would say, now that we've discussed these hypotheses, if you want to take wickets, you should ideally be looking to bowl in swing. And then if you're playing more casual cricket, I would suggest that if you are starting out, if you're a beginner, you should try and master in swing first, because that will give you more success. And then it's not like in-swing doesn't work against good batsmen either. If the ball is swinging a lot, if the pitch has some variation, in-swing is just as lethal against good batsmen. Whereas on the flip side, if you are already an outswing bowler, or if you're playing at a pretty high level, then I would suggest that you try and master outswing first, because outswing can get even the best batsman out. At least that's what I believe in my mind. And it gives you, especially if you're playing T20s, it's a better defensive option. That's what I believe.
Right.
So these are the conclusions. Now we will move on how to actually bowl in swing and outswing.
Right. And in some sense, this is the more operative part of the podcast, because I mean, if you don't know how to in swing or out swing, everything is just a theoretical discussion. So this is something one should really try to learn, at least one of them. So do you want to start by saying something, and then I can.
Okay, so I would like to start off by saying, in theory, it's very easy to say, yeah, you can bowl in swing or out swing, but come on, I'm in compy, I don't have time to practice all day. Professor is a professor, he has to. I assume you have a lot of grading, right?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah. So we're all busy people. No one has that much time in their everyday life to be like, okay, now I can bowl both, right? And even if you can bowl both, it's hard to keep it in the right area. So I think one of the first things we should start off with is how to actually be good at what you already bowl. So if you're an outswinger, I will cover the outswing, and if you bowl in swing, Professor will give you tips for that. So I say let's actually start with in swing, because I have some videos on outswing. Yeah.
Okay. So 3 or 4 things. So there's one thing I want to say, which is regardless of which way you want to swing the ball. This is an advice which I give to you after having implemented it myself for years. If you want to swing the ball, the only way to do it is, first of all, to release the ball on the seam, right? So when the ball leaves your hand, it should
The seam should be
the
upright.
seam should be straight or upright. The seam cannot wobble. The seam cannot be sideways. The seam has to be straight. I mean, this is bare minimum. Any podcast would teach you that, of course. How do you get control of this? Do you just keep bowling and that happens? A more efficient way to do this is the following. Take a ball, keep it with yourself when you're not doing anything, you're just sitting or chatting with your friends. just keep releasing the ball on the seam and watch the seam as you do it. So maybe watch the seam as I do it now. Just be convinced that all the time you're doing it, the ball is releasing on the seam. The ball, you are able to keep the seam upright. If you cannot keep the seam upright while sitting down and bowling, and maybe just watch it, keep your eyes on top of the ball, on top of the seam, and see if you're able to release it on the seam or not. A, it should release on the seam. Second, when you're releasing it, you sort of try to release the ball away from your fingers at the very last moment, so that you can give it maximum amount of
Backspin.
backspin or back rotations. The ball moves forward, but it rotates backwards. So if it doesn't have enough rotation, it may not cut the air enough. If you can give it a large amount of rotation, that would enhance the extent of swing in either directions. So what I like to do is keep both fingers, one on each seam. Just look up, do this, I don't know what, 500,000 times, whatever makes you feel happy, and release the ball and just keep watching the seam as you do it. And sometimes it may not come out right, and sometimes it will, but as long as more often than not it does, it's good. The fingers should leave the ball at the very last moment, in a way which sort of gives a snap. The snap is what would make the backspin.
So one thing I'd like to add to what Professor said is to get that, do what he is saying, you need to make sure that your wrist is one cocked backwards, and then you actually snap it down. This will do two things. Number one, it'll make you bowl faster because your wrist is adding pace, and second, it'll add a lot of backspin to the ball. Now, backspin does two things. One, which Professor said, actually helps the ball stabilize. Similar to how a bullet stabilizes in a gun barrel as it spins, this allows the seam to stay upright longer, and then it also makes the ball skid off the surface, because if the ball is spinning very fast, backspin at least, then it does not grip the surface as much, so it can skid off the surface. That's why bowlers like Shami and I think currently Harshit Rana, one of the things they do very well is they kind of hurry the batsman with their pace, because the ball skids on a little bit off the surface. And you'll notice Shami has a very good seam position. His seam is and wrist position. His wrist is perfectly upright and it snaps down perfectly.
Right. And the other way, I mean, if you're not by yourself, if you have a partner, especially during the practice session before the match, there's something also you can do in pairs. Just release it on seam to each other. I mean, we are sitting pretty close right now, but you won't be when you're practicing. Just keep making sure that your partner agrees that you're giving enough backspin to the ball, and it's more often than not releasing on the seam. If you cannot do these two things, you will not be able to do either of the swings. So this is sort of a necessary condition to be able to swing. So far what we talked about is completely neutral: seam position and rotation to the ball. And how to learn it, we told you. Just practice it by yourself or practice it with a partner before the match starts or during the match or something.
Yeah.
And it's all see, at the end of the day, what we are saying is all just muscle memory. If you do it enough number of times, your fingers or your muscles would sort of learn how to do it. Now coming to Inswing, and various people do it in various ways. Here is how I like to do it. So for one, if you notice my arm is sort of angled in at sort of a very high angle. So if I put this thing on top, this means even when my hand is straight, it's sort of pointing in. And for some people, that's what happens, and for some people, it points out. So
wait, can we pause? I actually never noticed that.
So notice my arm.
Yeah, put your arm out like that. So can you do like this? Damn.
So notice the amount of sort of angle on this. Predominantly, your hand would be either slightly angling in or slightly angling out. This is something that you should notice before you want to swing the ball. Because if my arm is angling in at sort of a obnoxiously high angle, it will be much easier for me to swing in the ball, which is why I do swing in the ball.
Professor was literally born to be an in-swinger. I actually never noticed this. So this is crazy. And for me, I guess my arm is pretty straight, I would say. So
It is. Your arm is pretty straight. It's not angled.
Ah.
Another person for which the arm angle is pretty high is Shoaib Akhtar. So
Acha,
Shoaib
yeah.
Akhtar has a pretty high inward going, and you would notice his inswing was completely lethal.
that is true. Yeah.
Right. So I mean, this is something you should try to notice in yourself. If you have either of these predilections, it's probably good to go in that direction. That's point number one.
I will add that to my. I didn't mention that in my video. I never even thought that was possible, but that's a very good point. Yes.
That is, and it's just something you can notice for yourself.
Yeah.
The angle in my arm is sort of this much. So I already have this advantage while I'm bowling, and it's good to use your body to your advantage, right? Okay, so now how do you swing the ball? The way I do it is so this is what is called as the index finger and this is the middle finger, right? So the way I bowl is I put all the pressure of the ball on my index finger, and my middle finger is only there to support the ball. So even though I'm holding it with both my fingers, I'm actually putting most of the work or the effort is done by this index finger, and the middle finger is sort of supporting it, so that when I release the ball, my index finger sort of pushes the ball in, and when it pushes the ball in, especially with the angle of my arm, the seam is already facing inside. So this is something I don't need to worry. The first thing Aryan or anyone would teach you that if you have to swing the ball in, the seam should be facing slightly inside, sort of towards this leg gully position. And if you have to swing the ball out, it should sort of face second slip or something, right?
Yes.
So in my case, or the way I do it, okay, regardless, make sure that your ball is pointing in. The way I sort of manage it is I put all the pressure on this index finger and then release it with the index finger, and the middle finger just make sure that the seam is upright. What happens then is that that exaggerates the amount of swing. So that's what I personally sort of like to do. And then of course the ball has to pitch on the 5th, 6th stump or something, sort of slightly fuller of good length, and then it has to do its own job. So those are all the things that I had to say.
Okay. So interesting actually, because in my video, I'm not going to talk much about outswing because Professor covered the basics. For outswing, you just need to make sure that seam is upright and that the seam is pointing. If you're the batsman, the seam is pointing towards slip. And what this ensures is that as long as your seam is upright, the seam acts like a rudder and the ball will naturally swing out. If you want to learn more about this, I have a full video, but my method is pretty simple. I just hold it straight, angle my wrist a little outwards, and then with my arm, I guess because it's straight, it's pretty much straight, and then I think naturally with just the way I've been bowling, my index finger is also the last thing on the ball, and because actually your middle finger is longer, what happens then is you can see that at the last point of contact, the seam already is going out. So that's why I find it very easy to bowl outswing.
So I would say this: a lot of you who would have tried to bowl, let's say outswing, let's say, and who would have failed. I can tell you, for most of you, where you would have failed is you would have tried to do this. You would have tried to make the seam point slightly outwards. You would have tried to keep your finger upright, your wrists cocked. But maybe you were not able to swing the ball, and maybe you gave up, and it's understandable. When you do not see a reward, you sort of try to give up. I'm pretty sure that for most of you, the reason you gave up is, or the reason you were not able to swing the ball is because your seam was not upright. So all of these theories are completely correct. Any video will teach you that. But as long as you cannot bowl with an upright seam, position of your hands or whatever, it doesn't matter that much. So maybe what Aryan is saying, you can start doing that with a one-step run-up. With a one-step run-up, try to bowl and maybe have a keeper or someone who can tell you if the seam is upright or not, or maybe just record it with your phone if you have the time. With a one-step run-up, if you can do it, then try to do it with a two-step run-up, 10-step run-up, and then a natural run-up. If you just come in with all of your pace, the body is focusing on too many things, and this most important thing which you have to focus on, the seam being upright and sort of having enough back rotation. If you can't do it with a one-step run-up, there's no way you will be able to do it with a natural run-up. So if you want to really learn it from scratch, start with a one-step run-up, bowl very slow, I don't know, 60 miles an hour, 65 miles an hour, and try to, if your seam is upright and if the ball is relatively new, you would see the ball sort of moving outwards. As soon as you see it, it will give you enough encouragement to sort of keep doing it from a longer run-up and so on and so forth. So it's a long process. Nothing good is ever learned quickly. So if you can stay honest to yourself and learn it slowly, I'm sure you'll learn either of these things.
Yes, I'd like to say it takes a while. I've been bowling outswing for years, and I noticed that I was not getting enough wickets. I wanted to bowl inswing to get wickets. It took me I've tried many times. I stopped because I tried it in a match. I would bowl wides. I'd be like, I'll just give up for now. It's not worth it, right? You need to if you want to learn a new way to swing the ball, you need to take time. You need to actually practice, not just in a match. And it took me a full month of bowling almost every day to finally be able to at least get the ball to swing in and land on the pitch. So it takes a while.
Right, and I must say, once you are actually able to do it, you are actually able to swing the ball, especially in a match. It's a beautiful feeling. It's a feeling which is beautiful enough so that you should work hard enough to earn it.
Okay, now that we know how to swing the ball, I want to pick your brains for this. How do you choose where to bowl? Because I think that's something that's a little more complicated, even for me, because I bowl outswing, I know where to bowl. When I switch to inswing, I still am a little unsure. Where do you aim to bowl in a normal situation?
Right, so to answer that, one has to understand that even if you're an inswing bowler, you are both an inswing and outswing bowler, depending on whether the batsman is right-handed or left-handed. So, case one, let's assume that the batsman is right-handed. Where to pitch the ball completely depends on your own information of to what extent you are able to swing the ball. And this is something you should know very well. Or you should be able to figure out in the first over of the match. So as to what extent are you swinging the ball. So for me, under a normal case, let's say this is good length. Let's say this is good length.
Mm-hmm.
I would so this here is probably 4th stump, this is 5th stump, and this is 6th stump.
Mm-hmm.
So somewhere here, so let's say this is my channel.
Okay.
Right? So that the ball finishes here or finishes here.
Okay.
But it shouldn't finish on the leg stump. This is just to give yourself the protection that first of all, if the ball is hitting on the leg stump, you may not get an LBW because the umpire may be wary. And then there's always a chance of bowling a wide ball.
Yes.
So for me, I guess for most in-swing bowlers, this is sort of the channel to aim. That's what I think. But of course, this can vary based on your individual thing.
Okay, so this is in a normal situation. Basically, as an in-swing bowler, you want to bowl mainly in a channel outside off stump. And then one thing I have noticed that you've done here is that you're actually pitching it fuller than good length, right?
Right.
Okay, so then you want the ball to end up here. This is sort of the path that an in-swing delivery should take according to Professor. And then obviously it starts swinging somewhere around here, right? Okay, so this is for a normal situation. Now I'd like to discuss a couple other situations. Let's say batsman's either new or you really want to get the guy out. As an in-swinger, how are you trying to get people out if that's the only thing you want? You don't care how many runs they hit.
Right, so if the batsman is new, then I may not completely follow this. So if the batsman is new, if you are an in-swing bowler, you should naturally be good at Yorkers. I mean, no one is perfect at Yorkers, but you should be because you are predominantly bowling full. If the batsman is new, a full ball is really, really lethal because then the chances of bamboozling him is pretty high. So for a new, especially for a new batsman, early on in the innings, a Yorker is pretty good. But your standard go-to length while you are swinging in the ball is this. And then I do think also you cannot swing in the ball all 6 times at the same place because then you get predictable. You bowl 2 or 3 in-swing balls and then you change it on purpose just in order to set up the batsman. And when you are changing it on purpose, then this is your length.
Just short of good length.
Just short of good length. If you want even ball something which is cross seam or which is not completely swing based, just so as to tell the batsman that I can also go short, and that will confuse his footwork. So predominantly this to get a wicket this, but after 2 or 3 balls here, one ball should come here, unless you are playing at a very low level where you can keep getting the batsman here. But this is also important. You have to know your slightly shorter balls to confuse the footwork of the batsman.
Okay, so to recap, what Professor is saying, this is your stock ball, number 1, which is just fuller than good length, going for about the top of the stumps. Then if you really want to take wickets, then this should be your second ball, a Yorker. And I will say this personally, I was captaining PURDUE in I think regionals, and I always give Professor the ball first because he likes to bowl full, and with the new ball he never fails to get swing. And even against very good batsmen, there are batsmen who've hit hundreds like an hour before the game because we play our matches back to back. Professor gets them out. I've seen a lot of the times with slightly fuller deliveries and Yorkers that the second the batsman sees the ball is full, they just go and hit it. Now, this third ball is actually very important that Professor mentioned, so that you need to change it up, especially in T20s. You bowl 2 balls here, you bowl it a third time, the batsman will swing, and by the third ball, he is probably going to be...
He will adjust.
So you need this third ball, which is, I would say, back of length, and like you said, you can also bowl it cross seam to stop the swing, because the batsman will expect the swing, so it'll probably go a little straighter and outside off, right?
Right.
Yes, so these are Professor's 3 deliveries.
Right, and also, like anything in life, as long as you can keep it simple. So it's sort of pretty simple, right? A 1, 2, 3. As long as you can keep it simple, the chances of executing it works out. Don't try 10 things. These are your 3 balls, at least in my view. As long as you can perfect these 3, that's good enough. Don't try 10 things at a time.
Okay, one last question I have for you for Inswing. Let's say you're bowling towards the deaths. I know you don't bowl there too often, but let's say the situation comes, you're an in-swing bowler, you have to bowl at the death. What do you do then?
I mean, at the death, there is not so much of swing. So in order to bowl at the death or even towards, I don't know, in a 35 over match.
Let me reframe. Let's say instead of bowling at the death, you bowled your first spell, you bowled well. Then second string bowlers come on, the batsman is like, he's hitting like crazy. Let's say they're like 80 after 7-8 overs. Let's say the captain calls you back. What do you do then? Like, my point is, you're an in-swing bowler, but you have to stop the runs.
Right. So if my job is to stop the runs in, let's say, at the middle of the match, then I would predominantly focus here. Keep the ball stump to stump. The 4 fielders who are inside.
Yes.
So the 4 fielders who are inside, let's say this is my pitch, is 1 here, 1 here, 1 here, and for me, the 4th. So this is fielder, this is fielder, this is 1 fielder, and for me the 4th fielder is sort of
like a fine leg.
Is a fine leg.
Okay.
So if my job is to come in the second spell and stop runs, I would predominantly bowl in this first channel and make sure that the 4 fielders who are inside, one of the 4 of them is the one who gets to field the ball, so that the batsman is cramped for room, first of all, because it's swinging in, and anytime he touches the ball, it goes here, 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 or here. So the first thing is to lower your expectations in your second spell. You won't bamboozle the batsman so often. That won't happen. Lower your expectations. Your aim is to stop the runs, so just focus on that. Be very calculative about your infield. Your outfield is almost always standard, and make sure that the ball goes only to your infield fielders, and stick to that. So that's all the things.
Okay. To clarify, is this one like a cow corner or is he straight?
No, this guy is straight. It's,
okay.
Not a cow corner is like.
Okay. So this is like a long on.
No. This guy is mid on.
Mid. Is he inside or outside?
Okay. So sorry. So I think there's an error here.
Yeah.
So
show me your outside fielders first.
Oh, okay. So what I was trying to say were first my inside fielders.
Okay.
So you said what to do if you come in the second spell, and my point was that I'll keep my 4 inside fielders in such a way so the batsman does not get easy singles.
Okay.
So these are my 4 inside fielders.
And where's your boundary riders?
My boundary riders are 1, 2, 3, 4.
Let's say four.
Let's say 4. Yeah.
Okay, so you're very standard for the 4, right? Is this your standard 4, right? Okay, good. So this is Professor's way of bowling in swing, how to bowl normally, how to take wickets, and what you're doing when you're trying to stop runs. Now, I'll go on to my theory and what you should try and do as an outswing bowler. So I'll use a black pen for this. I am actually, Professor is more of a wicket-taking bowler, so his lengths are slightly fuller. I actually have a very different philosophy. I like to take wickets by stopping runs, especially as an outswing bowler. Because like we've said, outswing is better for stopping runs. And here's the thing about T20s these days. Batsmen do not have patience. You bowl 2-3 dot balls, you know they're gonna try and hit the next one. So for starters, you don't want to give them an easy ball as an outswinger because let's say you bowl full, it's a ball that could go for 4 or 6, but if they miss it, they're not gonna get out, usually, because the ball will end up here. So for starters, I like to bowl, Professor's third ball is actually the first ball that I bowl. I like to bowl on off stump. I don't like to give any room. And I like to bowl hard length. And the reason why I'm bowling on off stump, not outside off, is because in T20s, especially with the wide ball, which stopped swinging earlier, half the ways that most batsmen score is they like to go cross bat. And to do that though, they need to have room to hit. If the ball is right here, you can't like go cross bat, or you have to play really early, which against my pace I found has been very difficult. So for my field, for outswing, in fact I don't even keep a boundary rider on this side. I like to keep my fielders here because to this day there's been, as a batsman, if you are able to play early enough to where you can hit the ball like this, you're taking a very big risk. Sometimes batsmen score boundaries off me in this area, but it's very rare. And most of the times they try it, they usually get out. So I like to keep 2 boundary riders here. And then on this hard length ball, what usually happens, right? If let's say I get a little too wide or the ball swings away, they usually swing like this. And at this point, the ball's ending up over there, which is where these 2 fielders are ready. Then, so this is my stock ball, especially in T20s. Then for my wicket taking option, let's say I want to take wickets. I think we've all seen that wicket by James Anderson. He takes a lot, right? Where the batsman thinks the ball is going to end up here, but then so he aims for leg stump, and then if the ball is swinging a lot also, then there's this ball where it ends up here and then it hits off from here, right? We've all seen that wicket. This is what you should aim for when you're going for wickets. Because you want to go fuller, you want the batsman to play at it, and you want the ball to end up on the stumps. Now as an outswinger, you're kind of limited in how you can do this, because for the ball to end up on the stumps, you have to aim for outside leg stump at the minimum, which is why I also bowl a lot of wides. And then third, for my defensive option, I usually just drag my length back a little, and then like Professor said, cross seam is actually a very good option, because cross seam allows the ball to both skid if it lands on the shiny side somewhere, or it bounces extra if it accidentally lands on the seam. So these are my options as an outswing bowler. Now, one other thing that I like to do personally, which Professor also mentioned, vary your release points, and you can do this by going in and out of the crease. Now, Professor said in-swing bowlers can't or can do this to a lesser extent. I actually disagree. I believe that any bowler can really change how they bowl just from the run-up. And as an outswinger, this is what I like to do. At the start of the innings especially, you can actually make more deliveries end up on the stumps if you go wide over the crease, and here is why. If you start from here, right, and you throw it in, let's say it lands here, there's no way that this ball, if it's swinging out, that it'll be far away from the stumps. At the very least, it'll be in this region. And then if you go close to the crease and it's swinging out, you'll notice that the ball has the chance to swing a lot more. So at the start of the inning especially, I like to go wide of the crease and bowl outswing by angling it in from the run-up. Whereas later on, when the ball gets old actually as an outswing bowler, what you can do is you can actually come very close to the stumps. And then you can bowl the same line, which allows the ball to, which if the ball is swinging less, it'll still be able to swing a little bit and still end up in a better region. That's what I think.
Right.
1 and 2. And obviously you have your Yorkers and your variations, but those are secondary. for basic outswing and inswing, these are the things that you should do.
Right. It's good to practice the basics first.
Mhm.
Don't try to. I mean, if you get motivated by this podcast and go to practice, don't start practicing with your leg cutters or your yorkers first. Get either one here first or one here first, depending on whether you're trying to do inswing or outswing. Get your basics built up. Give it a few weeks, maybe even a few months, and then go on to other things. As long as the basics are strong, other things will follow.
Yes. So with this, I think this is a pretty good starting guide. Or if you already, in fact, the best use for this is if you already are a bowler, perhaps you don't, you can swing it one way, but you don't exactly know how to go about it. These are how you can set batsmen up and get wickets.
Yeah, and it's also very important, I feel, especially if you're in a practice session. The last thing which Aryan mentioned, which is using the crease. For example, to be honest, this is not something I do a lot. So, especially if you are in a practice session, rather than just repeating your skill set, it's good to practice these things out. It's good to experiment these things out. Go wide of the crease and see how you end up bowling the same ball, and sort of experiment these things. Especially this using the crease thing, I'll certainly do it the next time I practice.
Yeah, this crease thing actually, I have a full video on it as well. I have a lot of videos, but
Right.
this actually, you can have a lot of difference. We won't go too much in depth, but for you, Professor, I think one thing you can try is, since your ball swings very late, right? I think one thing you can try as an in-swing bowler is you can actually come very close to the stumps, maybe even come from slightly behind the umpire. Because what happens then is, if the ball is swinging, right, if it's swinging in, the type of path that it will take if it's swinging is something, let's say if you're bowling straight, right, the path it would take is something like that, right? You can
Right,
see it
right.
swings towards the end. If you actually come like this, little bit, what happens then is the ball doesn't seem like it's in swing, and then at the last moment it swings in. Which means as a batsman, if you are standing here and you look at this line, right, it seems like the ball is not swinging. Which is something you can only do if you use this sort of angle. Whereas if you come from wide of the crease like this, right, if the ball starts swinging, which it has to start somewhere around here, I would assume, the batsman can see it from here, because from the front angle, you can see this much movement fast, whereas over here, you can only see about like this much. This is my theory.
Right. This is not something I've experimented with much, but it does make sense that you try to, as an in-swinger, you try to push the ball outside, coming from very close to the umpire, and at the very end it comes in. I mean, that might bamboozle the batsman much more than him seeing the conventional line of the ball. So, certainly these are things one should practice and not just stick to the same script. But again, releasing the ball on the seam, doing this as many times as you can, mastering this length 1 for in-swing, this length 1 for outswing, and then learning your other skill set, and then sort of all the other things which are inside towards the end. And also, if this podcast is your very first introduction to this channel, do go and watch out some of the other videos that Aryan has made. I do find them sort of very instructive from a skill set point of view. I mean, there are a lot of videos on bowling or batting or cricket which have a lot of bullshit, but for any of these things, even for bowling with a tape ball and so on, do go and check out these videos. They've helped me, and I'm sure they'll help you as well.
Thank you. It was lovely having you on the podcast. I think it's a pretty good first episode.
Thanks for having me.
Yes, of course. And then for the next episode, I was actually thinking that I want to cover going around the wicket, because I believe that is a very interesting strategy. So we won't discuss that too much here, but have you ever tried going around the wicket?
Well, I do. I actually always go around the wicket to left-handers.
I see.
So for the left-handers, your everything changes, right? Because you suddenly become an outswing bowler. For a left-hander, I bowl from round the stumps, and I pitch the ball on the middle stump, and I hope to get their edge as they drive the ball. That's something which maybe we should have talked about more in this podcast. But but going from over the wicket to round the wicket is much more of a change than you think it is in your head. And that's again that's something which which one should first appreciate and then try to use it as a bowler. Doing these two things, you would notice a lot of international bowlers doing it more and more. Going around the wicket, especially for the last ball of the over sometimes. So that's certainly a topic which deserves another podcast
Yeah.
or something.
And I'd like to add that what you mentioned about the lefties and righties, that's why it's very important to know the theory for both, even if you can only bowl one. Because while you may be an in-swing bowler to a right-hander, you are an outswing bowler to a left-hander. So although technically you're bowling the same thing, the theory for where you have to bowl should change according to these principles. Because if you try to bowl the same way to a left-hander, right? If you try and pitch it up to a left-hander and you're bowling outswing to him, then you might not be as successful to if you pretend you're actually just a left-handed outswing bowler and you try and maybe vary your length slightly differently.
Right. And many a times you would notice, for example, in-swing bowlers like me, I've noticed many who are very good against right-handers but who struggle like anything against left-handers. And the reason that is happening is that they are not mentally able to adjust to the fact that now they have to adjust to a outswinging angle. So see, suddenly the length has to change, right? If suddenly I have a left-handed batsman, my length has to move from here to here because one on the red is one on the black here. Most bowlers do not make that change because we don't think that much at the non-professional level of cricket. But if you're serious about it, which I'm sure you are, and that's why you're here, you have to make that change. Not only do you have to adjust your length, you have to adjust your length as well as soon as you see a left-handed batsman. So these are things which I'm sure should think more about, or we can talk more about in other podcasts and so on.
Yes. Well, I think we've properly answered the question, should you bowl in swing or out swing? I think the actual question is, when should you bowl in swing, when should you bowl out swing?
And also, and also how.
Yes.
The how is more important. And I don't know, maybe if some of you get motivated and if you can send us videos on comments for this of you bowling an in-swing or an out-swing ball, a short video of that, I think we would love to see that. That would be amazing. That would be sort of this podcast achieving its purpose.
Yes.
So if you can put that in the comments or something, that would make us really happy.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.
Bye.